Hi again. I want to share you my journey on how I successfully got my digital visa approved and maybe like some of you. I also look at other countries who offers digital nomad to freelancer like me. One of the countries that I was interested and was actually in plan to apply was Spain. So in this video, I will show you some insight on what to choose between Portugal digital nomad visa and Spain digital nomad visa if you're planning one in the future. For those individuals yearning to live and one day reside on one of the European countries, always ask which country have better digital nomad visa offer or, more importantly, less cost. You can watch my previous video on what requirement to bring and submit when applying for digital nomad visa in Portugal. If you like this kind of video, don't forget to subscribe and like to hear more and on guiding you to your path to become a successful digital nomad. There are other countries that offer digital nomad visa. But for now, let's tackle on this too, based on my experience. Digital nomadism is quickly gaining popularity. Lots of freelancers and professionals are quickly adapting to the digital nomadic lifestyle. Honestly, there are a lot of advantages in this lifestyle. Flexible workspace, you can practically work anywhere, in your home or in cafe or parks, up to you. Excellent work and life balance, it's less stressful. You don't need to wake up early, take a shower, and go through traffic just to travel to your company office. Networking opportunities, you can have many clients as you want. Flexible working schedule, you to your own boss. Generate income as you tour many fascinating places. Enjoy delicious and authentic food from the country. Successful candidates and applicants will also have the chance to seek a residency permit, allowing them to travel within the European nations. Although it's lucrative and look amazing, there are some limitations that we need to consider when choosing digital nomad way. 1. High cost of living in high-end cities like Barcelona, Madrid, Lisbon, Porto, and etc. 2. The most spoken language in Spain is Spanish, and in Portugal it's Portuguese. First question comes to mind for most people. Which of the two visas processing will cost you more or less? Unless you have huge source of income and saving, then this won't be too much of a problem for you. But for those individuals who have limited saving and have longer planned goal by aiming for citizenship, it's best to wisely choose which options is best for you early on. Both have almost the same requirements. Almost. Let's discuss about Spain first so that you will have insights if Spain will be better option for you or Portugal. For many years, Spain has been part of the digital nomads or freelancers list of dream locations. Therefore, there have been many requests for the Spain digital nomad visa. So finally, Spain has introduced its digital nomad visa in January 2023 as part of the Startup Act, encouraging entrepreneurship and foreign investment. Let's dive into the list of documents for the Spain digital nomad visa. 1. Delete completed copies of the visa application form. 2. 2 passport-size photos. 3. Private health insurance. 4. A valid passport. 5. Proof of financial means. 6. Proof of accommodation. 7. Proof of employment. 8. Proof of income tax return. 9. Proof that your employer or company has been operational for a minimum of 1 year. 10. Documentation indicating and verifying your income. 11. Provide certificate showing Social Security coverage from their home country. 12. Proof of your qualifications and areas of expertise. 13. Proof that you do not have a criminal record. 14. A copy of your CV or resume. 15. Motivation letter as to why you chose Spain. Now that we have mentioned all the list of documents to be eligible for Spain digital nomad, now we look at the documents required by Portugal digital nomad, and later we will compare this to. Now here's the main general requirement for Portugal digital nomad visa. 1. Employment contracts or statement from the employer proving the link with the company. 2. Criminal record certificate issued by the competent authority of the country of the applicant's nationality or of the country where the applicant has resided for over a year, except for applicants under 16, with the apostille or legalized. 3. Proof of regular situation in case of residence in a country other than the country of current nationality, which must be valid 3 months after the estimated date of return. 4. Valid travel insurance covering necessary medical expenses, including urgent medical assistance and possible repatriation. 5. Request for criminal record inquiry by the Immigration and Border Services, SEF, not applicable to minors under the age of 16. 6. Passport or other travel document, valid for 3 months after the estimated date of return. 7. 2 photos, even passport type, recent and in good condition to identify the applicant, 1 for this form. 8. National visa application filled and duly signed by applicant. For minors and incapacitated, forms should be signed the legal guardian. Now that I have mentioned both the requirement, let's compare this to. As you can see, it's quite obvious that Spain has more requirements for you to be eligible for their digital nomad compared to Portugal. It can take weeks or even months to fully gather all of the documents you need to apply for digital nomad visa. Compared to Spain, applying for Portugal digital nomad will be less time-consuming for you if you want a quicker way. And comparing the requirements of each country, you will also know that Spain has much stricter policies that you need to follow to obtain the digital nomad visa. I will further discuss the requirement of each that help you decide which the two is best for you. Now I will exclude the obvious requirement like the visa application form, photos, criminal record certificate, proof of regular situation, passport, and just focus on the important ones that can identify if it is advantageous for you not. Now let's first go to tackle on health insurance. Although both required this, from my experience, Spain required that you apply for their country's local insurance company that covers you for the duration of your stay. Unlike Portugal, they're okay that you get your health insurance outside Portugal as long as it covers their countries too. But remember, it's advisable to contact your country's consulate to ask them directly what they require because some Spain consulates may be okay with any health insurance as long as it covers their country. If you need to apply to their local health insurance company, there are some available private health insurance company that you can apply online and try searching and find the legit one. If we scorned us in terms of health insurance, I will give Portugal a little head-ups as it's not as strict when it comes to health insurance as long as it covers their country and duration of stay. But I think both easy as long as you find the one that they approved. Now let's move to proof of financial means, and this very, very important for both countries. You need to prove that you meet the minimum income requirement. You must show at least 3 months of bank statements with your income deposits, such as payslips, work contracts, or even bank statements. I have forgotten to mention this also in my previous video. Even though Portugal never mentions to submit payslip, I would recommend that you bring along your invoices or payslip as proof that you have an employer and being paid on a monthly basis, or you're receiving income that can be totaled to the monthly income required by the consulate. There are income requirements for the Spain Digital Nomad Visa. To qualify, you must earn at least 200% of the monthly Spanish minimum wage, which equates to 20,000 euros per year, or 2,334 euros per month. Close family members such as children or spouses are eligible to join applicants. However, in this case, evidence of additional income is required. For a party of 2, an extra 75% of the Spanish monthly minimum wage is required, or 875 euros. An extra 292 euros is required for each dependent thereafter. These figures are likely to increase, as an increase in the Spanish monthly minimum wage is predicted. So you must show that you have a yearly salary of 31,752 euros, which is 2,334 euros to 2,646 euros per month. Now for Portugal, it did not accurately specify if you need to show a total of your income on your back statement or the monthly salary you're earning. The minimum income requirement is 4 times the Portuguese minimum wage or monthly salary over the previous 3 months. That comes around to a minimum income average of 9,840 to 10,940 euros. So it's 4 times the earning of local citizen there, which you need 3,280 euros per month at minimum. Now remember, the Portugal embassy didn't really specifically say that you need to show that you are earning monthly of 3,280 euros. As I remember, I show a little less than this when I apply for my digital nomad visa. There is a possibility that the income requirements mentioned on the checklist may be interpreted differently by your country's consulate, or were intended differently by the Portuguese government. You can watch my previous video on how to apply for digital nomad visa in Portugal, as I also break down the calculation on this part. So I would choose which is better. I would lean a little on Portugal based on my experience. If we are to talk about monthly earning, maybe Spain has the edge if you are only required to show that you're earning around 2,334 euros to 2,646 euros per month. rather than Portugal earning monthly of €3,280 per month. But remember, Spain also requires you to show that you have a yearly salary of €31,752 aside from your monthly earning of €2,334 to €2,646 per month. For Portugal, it's not explained clearly if it refers for you to show that you are earning monthly or the savings in your bank must already show minimum average of €9,840 to €10,940 before you apply. On my part, I show on my saving that I have more than €10,940 on bank, even though my monthly earning is little less than €3,280 per month. So I'll give this to Portugal as it only requires one, probably, as it also depends on your country's consulate on how they determined this, so be aware of this. Now, let's move to proof of accommodation. For me, this depends on which location or city you prefer to live. Although Portugal can be a little less expensive when it comes to rents, but honestly, they're not much difference. If you choose cities like Barcelona or Madrid in Spain and Lisbon or Porto in Portugal, the cost of living is high, and it's hard to find cheap rent for whole studio or apartment. You can control your monthly expenditure and make a clear boundary between your work and travel life. You can decide if you prefer to rent the whole house or apartment, or just rent a room. This is all up to you, so I give points to both. Now let's move to proof employment. Both countries require this upon submission. Remote workers must meet a wide range of criteria. They need to manifest a stable work contract, have explicit permission from your current employers that you can work remotely. You must prove you are a freelancer with foreign clients, a startup owner or entrepreneur, or an employee of a foreign company located outside of their country, which can be a work contract or a confirmation letter or document from your boss endorsing your capacity to work remotely. Although both Spain and Portugal require this, for Spain, though, it has additional specific requirements. Not only that you must prove you are a freelancer with foreign clients, or a startup owner or entrepreneur, or an employee of a foreign company located outside of Spain, but you have to hold your position for at least 1 year before applying for this type of visa. Some consulates might consider certification of working for at least 3 months before the visa application for a foreign company. But in general, the applicant will submit a certificate issued by the company and declaring 1. If the applicant is an employee, mentioning the length of the contract and explicit consent to work remotely in Spain. 2nd, if the applicant is self-employed, it must indicate the length of the contract and the terms and conditions to work remotely in Spain. As for Portugal, it doesn't require any certification of work that proving your seniority or how long you've been working with your company or client. Just submitting a work contract is enough as long as it mentions the date or start of activity, or if there's an end of contract agreements. It also needs to mention in the contract the amount or salary you will be receiving and what's your activity or job description. It is also important if you're working with a company to ask for employment certificate, OEC, as proof that you are actually working there. There's a good advantage, though, in Spain. Let's say you have a client and have contract agreement with a Spanish company. You can actually also work for a Spanish company, but with certain limitations. A. You maintain the relationship with the foreign company that allowed you to obtain this visa. And B. The income you generate from the Spanish company does not account to more than 20% of your total income. For Portugal Digital Nomad Visa, it specifically mentions that you're not allowed to work on a Portuguese company that takes the opportunity that should be open to their local citizen. If you're able to find a Portuguese company that's willing to give a contract, you must apply for work visa. It's fine and okay that you apply first for digital nomad visa, and once you arrived in Portugal, you can find work there with their local establishment. But remember, you need to convert your visa to work visa or work permit, as digital nomad visa doesn't allow you this. You can also apply for another type of visa, which is a job seeker type of visa in Portugal, where it specifically caters to give you the opportunity to find a job there. Although there are certain perks in Spain digital nomad visa, as this visa allows remote workers or self-employed people from non-EU countries to work and live in Spain, as long as no more than 20% of their work comes from Spain. However, compared to Portugal requirement for the proof of employment, it's much easier and less time-consuming, as Spain requirement can be a bit difficult to process or obtain, mainly because of the sheer number of documents and proof that you need to gather along with your application form when you apply. And not to mention you have to ask or bother your client or company for the certification of work. Still, I will give green light to both. Unlike some other digital nomad visa programs, remote workers and freelancers can earn up to 20% of their total income from Spanish clients, which means you can work there and doesn't require to convert to work permit and have better opportunity on earning money there as long as you follow the limitation rule. While Portugal Digital Nomad Visa is much faster and easier to obtain since it doesn't require many documents. Next is proof of income tax return. This is to show that you are not liable in your own country and you have good standing as a taxpayer. It also allows or determines the consulate if you are truly earning and by how much each year, as some applicant will manipulate their bank statement or work contracts. Usually they will ask for 3 to 5 years of ITR, but this is dependent on your country's consulate, so make sure to ask your country's consulate if you are required to submit this. My experience with my county Spanish consulate, they did ask me for the ITR, and they asked for 5 years worth of my ITR. Your ITR also allow consulate as reference on their decision you're standing as taxpayer, as once your visa is approved, you will also pay taxes to Spain, and you are obliged to declare and pay your taxes there. I will further discuss this part later, as it's important to comprehend the tax regime you will get as non-resident taxpayers once you arrived in Spain or Portugal. So for this specific, I give the green light to Portugal as you are not required to submit ITR. So no stress and less time-consuming. Now we move to proof that your employer or company has been operational for a minimum of 1 year. I'll start with Portugal as this is not a requirement by the consulate, so you're free not to submit this one. As for Spain Digital Nomad Visa, if you have a business, you must prove that your company or business must have been established at least 1 year ago outside of Spain. And if you are unemployed, you must provide a proof that the company or client you are working has been in operation for a minimum of 1 year. Aside from providing contract as proof of employment, and it must also mention or states that your position allows remote work and that they specifically allow you to do so, it's essential that the company has been operating for at least 1 year prior to your application. So I give this to Portugal as it's more advantageous to freelancer or a remote worker as you don't need to provide this document. Next, provide a document indicating and verifying your income. So aside from ITR, employment certificate, and payslips, you also need to submit alongside a bank certificate or bank statement or both. For Spain, this is required to prove that you meet the monthly minimum income requirement. You must show at least 3 months of bank statements with your income deposits. Portugal doesn't indicate in the checklist of requirements, but it's advisable to submit this along with your other requirement to show you're able to afford and support yourself, and not be burdened on their government taxes. Along with bank statements, you must also present at least 3 months' worth of payslips from your freelance clients or employer. Acquiring this is not hard, so both are okay. Next, employees will need a certificate showing Social Security coverage from their home country, and this is only required by Spain and not Portugal. But remember to check your country's Spanish consulate to make sure that this document is required for you. To further explain this requirement, when you apply for the Spain Digital Nomad Visa, you will become a tax resident in Spain. This is when things can get a bit complicated. One of the required documents for the Spain Digital Nomad Visa application is the Social Security certificate from your company for the Social Security taxes that come out of your paycheck. This is also depending if their country has an agreement with Spain regarding the double treaty agreement and the interpretation on each country's tax legislation. This is because if your employer or client will be deducting from your paycheck or not, and you don't want the Spanish tax authority to deduct your salary twice. This is a very open question, and beware some countries are not currently issuing these certificates because they believe they are not applicable for remote workers. So keep update on how this is resolved. As for Portugal, have no fear, as this certificate is not required for the application of Digital Nomad Visa. But be mindful, once you become a taxable person in Portugal, you are required to pay your Social Security contribution in Portugal. For this area, I'll give this to Portugal as it's not required, and freelancer or remote worker can relax as they don't need to acquire this. Lastly, proof of your qualifications and areas of expertise. Again, for Portugal, this is not required when you're applying for Digital Nomad Visa. As for Spain, this could be either the applicant has an undergraduate or postgraduate degree from a university, college, or business school of prestige, or have at least 3 years of work experience in his or her current field of activity, and be considered a highly qualified professional. If you do not have a degree, you must prove you have worked in your industry for the last 3 years. You must have worked remotely in your current position for at least 3 months before applying. Although Portugal doesn't specify regarding this, but it's advisable to at least work on your current application for 3 months before applying. This is to show continuous work relationship with your client or company and have stronger standing on your application for digital nomad visa. So for this, I'll give the green light to Portugal. Now let's talk about your benefits. After all, this is also an investment for you if it's worth it or not. Personally, I find this topic to be very, very interesting. I have researched and watched tons of videos of people who successfully got their visa of what to do after they arrived at their countries. And there's not a lot who can give me a more detailed explanations in regard to tax situation. And so you might end up spending money to hire a professional tax consultant or accountant and find the county's tax to be too much of a financial burden to you. So that is something you should also be mindful. Remember, once you stayed more than 183 days, you become tax resident in the country. This applied both to Spain and Portugal. For individuals who choose Spain Digital Nomad Visa, one of the main appeals of this new permit comes from the tax side, of which you can apply for the special regime of personal income tax in Spain, commonly known as Beckham law, that will allow digital nomad visa holders to save taxes. As long as you're not an independent freelancer but work remotely for a company abroad, that is, you are an employee, you will be taxed through an improved non-resident income tax regime. So this is important. You need to check if you are eligible for this because not every digital nomad will be accepted if you don't meet the requirement. Remember, in Spain, the general regime of personal income tax is a progressive tax rate up to 47% and includes personal allowances and certain tax deductions. For freelancer with high-profile job, it is usually very convenient to apply for the special regime. The special regime has certain requirements that need to be met, and therefore, it is highly important to seek for tax advice beforehand. In case you haven't been in Spain for the past 5 years, instead of 10, as the general rule states, you will be allowed to pay a flat tax rate of just 24% on your income, instead of a progressive rate that can reach up to 48%. During the first 4 years of living in Spain, digital nomads will pay a 15% tax instead of the standard base of 24%, which is a huge tax cut. In order to be considered as a non-resident for tax purposes, you will have to initiate a separate and different application process than the one you complete for the residency process, and you will do so with the Spanish tax agency during the 6 months after you obtain your residency authorization. In summary, those working under the Spain Digital Nomad Visa qualify for reduction in Spanish taxes for the first 4 years of their stay, providing that they earn less than 600,000 euros per year, instead of paying the usual 24% in Spanish taxes. So the first 4 years you'll qualify for a reduced rate of 15%, increasing to the usual rate for the 5th year. Furthermore, Spain has double taxation with 90 countries, meaning that if you are paying tax for foreign income in your country, you will not be taxed again in Spain. This makes working remotely from Spain a very attractive option for many digital nomads who are used to paying far higher taxes in their home countries. Now, let's compare to Portugal tax benefits. Since 2009, Portugal has been actively encouraging the arriving of new residents through the non-habitual resident NHR regime. This initiative aims to attract both capital and expertise to our country by inviting individuals to establish residence in Portugal. Under this regime, individuals who have not been residents in Portugal in the last 5 years and whose incomes are subject to taxation in their home country are granted a 10-year exemption from personal income tax, IRS. Portugal uses a progressive tax system for individuals, including freelancers. The income tax rates can vary depending on the total annual income. Individuals in the lowest income category will be subject to a 14.5% tax rate, while those in the highest income bracket will face a 48% tax rate. Moreover, if your annual earnings exceed 80,000 euros, you'll also have an obligation to pay a solidarity tax, which falls within the range of 2.5% to 5%. Furthermore, the NHR regime offers the option to tax income from labor and freelance work at an autonomous tax rate of 20%, along with a 20% withholding tax rate for labor incomes. This specifically applies to activities characterized by a high level of scientific, artistic, or technical value, including freelancers under the non-habitual resident NHR program. And this program can lead to significant tax savings, especially for retirees and some professionals. Freelancers in Portugal are also required to make Social Security contributions based on their income. These contributions provide access to social benefits, including healthcare and pension benefits. Upon your registration as self-employed in Portugal, you will enjoy a 12-month grace period during which you are exempt from Social Security contributions. Following this initial period, you will be required to declare your earnings every quarter by submitting an online quarterly report. In general, you are exempt from paying Social Security for the first 12 months after registration. In Portugal, self-employed individuals are subject to a Social Security rate of 21.4%. However, for individual entrepreneurs, this rate increases to 25.2%. Freelancers in Portugal also need to charge VAT on their client, also known as value-added tax. The standard VAT rate is 23%. This rate applies to most goods and services, is an important aspect of financial management when operating as a self-employed professional. Freelancers in Portugal are generally required to register for VAT if their annual turnover, total sales, exceeds 12,500 euros of annual turnover. Those who earn less than 12,500 euros a year are exempt from charging VAT. Operating without proper registration can lead to legal and tax issues, including fines and penalties. It's essential to comply with registration and reporting requirements. You can watch my video on how to register as freelancer in Portugal, and you can watch it to get an idea on how to become an active freelancer in Portugal if you plan to apply for digital nomad visa in the future. Once your earnings exceed the 12,500 euros threshold, you are required to notify the tax authority, and you will be required to make quarterly income tax payments based on estimated earnings. But remember, for the first year upon registration as freelancer, you do not charge VAT to your client when you issue green receipt or recibo verdes. It's essential to issue invoices for your services or products. After receiving payment, you must also provide receipts to clients. A combined fatura recibo can be used when clients pay upfront. I also provide a video on how to issue recibo verdes, and you can watch it to get better understanding on starting as tax resident in Portugal. So overall, for freelancer or self-employed who are money conscious, but also want to enjoy travel or just want better livelihood opportunity for the future, my advice for the first-timer who plan to apply for digital nomad visa: Portugal would be better choice as it's much easier to apply compared to Spain and has more tax benefit that can help you as a starter from financial tax burden. But remember, this is all depending on your situation, and you yourself know what best for your future. Also, I consider Spain digital nomad application to be so costly, mainly because they require translating most documents into Spanish. This may vary slightly based on the vicinity or country of application. Some consulates may be okay with documents and papers in their local language, while some may mandate Spanish sworn translations. These translations must be done by officially recognized translation services, and you can get a list of approved and recognized providers from your local Spain embassy or consulate. With my experience on my country consulate, this is required, and it costs so much because the translator rate it per word. So be prepared for the expense if you choose Spain digital nomad visa application. For Portugal, they don't require documents to be translated to Portuguese. But remember, it depends on each country's consulate rules, and some might require you to. This video only provides a better picture if you decided to embark on the journey of self-employment or freelancing in Portugal, or those who have already set sail on this exciting adventure. These are the crucial anchor point that demands your attention and helps you prepare to become a tax resident in Portugal. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like if you want more informative video like this. And I hope this video helped you get the idea and what steps to do once you arrived in Portugal. So ensure you have all of the documents in order and make sure you don't miss any documents so you can confidently apply for Digital Nomad without doubts and fears. Get everything in line and you'll be good to go. If you chose Portugal for Digital Nomad, then you can check my other video on what documents and requirement to bring with you. You can also check other EU countries that offer digital nomad visas, includes Croatia, Cyprus, Estonia, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Latvia, Malta, Romania, the Netherlands, and Norway for more options. Bye.